News every 15 minutes, weather every 10, and sports twice an hour.
Newstalk, KGVO, AM 1290 and 98.3 FM.
You're listening to Montana Morning with Peter Christian.
How high's the water, Mama? Well, at least 13 feet and rising. Good morning. I'm John King, filling in for Peter Christian for your Montana Morning newscast this morning as he takes a day of vacation. Well, historic flooding on the Clark Fork River, streams overwhelming culverts, and the threat of flooding near the old Smurfett Stone container ponds were topics discussed by the Office of Emergency Management yesterday. First to speak was National Weather Service hydrologist Ray Nicholas, who provided an update on the Clark Fork.
And as most of you know, the Clark Fork River here in Missoula is flowing at near record levels. We haven't seen the Clark Fork River above the 13-foot level since 1981. So this is the highest flow in the last 40 years. We've already surpassed the 2011 flood here in Missoula. Just a few minutes ago, I noticed the river gauge on the Clark Fork River above Missoula was at 13 feet.
We hit that 13-foot mark at around 11 o'clock in the morning yesterday. Nicholas said cooler temperatures may slow the flow of snowmelt into the rivers, but they'll continue when the weather warms.
The unfortunate news is that even though the river's going to crest this weekend, it's going to start coming back up again next week. And what levels it's going to get to then, we're not sure at this point, but we'll have those updates as we go into the weekend as far as the next crest on the river, because there's still a lot of snow up in the mountains and a lot more water to come.
Office of Emergency Management Director Adrian Beck addressed the problem of high waters on area streams, especially after a strong thunderstorm. A thunderstorm is expected perhaps today.
Well, the large Clark Fork has been our primary focus as far as the impacts from flooding. When we have these rainstorms come in, small streams react a lot more quickly and a lot more violently, and so we ask the public to maintain situational awareness about those streams and to, if you see hazards associated with those or with the Clark Fork or the Bitterroot or any of our large water areas, to report that. There is a reporting form on the Office of Emergency Management's website.
Travis Ross with the Missoula City County Health Department said the Army Corps of Engineers is inspecting the protective berms that block the Clark Fork River from the old containment and settling ponds near the former Smurfett Stone container mill. He was asked about a worst-case scenario, floodwaters overwhelming the berms where there are potentially 50 to 60 years of accumulated toxic materials.
This site is being overseen by the State Department of Environmental Quality and the Environmental Protection Agency. So presumably they will have some contingencies in place with the potentially responsible party, former owners of the site, to stabilize or mitigate whatever needs to be done should a breach occur.
Those former owners include Westrock, M2 Green, and International Paper. The National Weather Service predicts the Clark Fork River near Missoula to continue to climb into Saturday, perhaps up to 14 feet, a level not seen for over a century, and which would be the second highest level on record, behind the all-time highest record of 17 feet, set back in 1908. At around 6 o'clock last night, 3 more homes received mandatory evacuation orders on Harpers Bridge Road. Incident Commander Mel Holtz has details.
We have officers and deputies on scene with the Sheriff's Office on Harpers Bridge Road. Right now, they encountered some flooding across the road, and they have 3 more orders for evacuations in the Harpers Bridge area, and then 10 of those homes are putting on a warning status.
Holtz said there are more and more sightseers driving around the flooded area, putting themselves and residents at risk. A volunteer sandbag filler here just a few minutes ago, Adam Rush, called in and said that this has been a problem on 3rd Street especially.
It actually has washed across the road and is starting to kind of erode parts of Harpers Bridge Road. We do also have a roadblock established. We ask that anybody in that area please avoid it. We know we're starting to get a lot of people that are interested, starting to look around the area, and now we're asking that they stay away from the area. We have residents that are working on getting their livestock and horses out of that area right now.
That evacuation brings the total number of homes that have been evacuated so far up to 63. Not too long after last night's evacuations, crews were called to the Clark Fork River west of the Reserve Street Bridge for reports of a transient man on a raft. NBC Montana reports that they were able to rescue the man shortly before 9 p.m. and everyone is safe. Earlier yesterday, search and rescue workers found another transient man's tent completely surrounded by water in the same area. Crews escorted him and others out. A former Billings clinic nurse plans to plead guilty to using syringes to surreptitiously steal medicine and replace it with saline. A change of plea hearing is scheduled next Thursday for Donald Friedrich Mills III, who is charged with tampering with consumer products and acquiring fentanyl by misrepresentation, fraud, forgery, and deception. The Billings Gazette reports that Mills plans to plead guilty without a deal with prosecutors. Mills stole the opioid fentanyl between February and mid-March 2017, according to court documents. Prosecutors say Mills told investigators he typically took 2 vials at a time during most of his shift. Over that period, he told investigators he had neck pain and was dealing with anxiety. The Drug Enforcement Administrator seized 22 vials authorities suspected had been tampered with and found no fentanyl inside of 15 of those vials. On Thursday, a group of 6 first-term lawmakers, including Montana Congressman Greg Gianforte, introduced a constitutional amendment to limit the number of terms an individual may serve as a member of Congress. Here's what Gianforte had to say.
Washington is busted and broken. Our nation's founders intended for citizen legislators to lead. They didn't intend for them to become professional politicians, logging years upon years in Washington and living high on the hog. I'm proud to join my colleagues and President Trump as we work to bring term limits to Congress and clean up Washington so it works for Montanans, not the D.C. insiders.
The term limits would apply to members of the 115th Congress and every session of Congress going forward. In addition to Gianforte, the group of first-term legislators include 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats. Montana voters put term limits on elected office holders back in 1992, but the Supreme Court ruled that those restrictions didn't apply to members of the U.S. House and Senate in a 1995 decision. Voters can start filling out their federal primary ballots soon. Missoula Elections Coordinator Dana Cosby explains.
Now that we are wrapping up the school board election and we're in special districts, we are happy to move on to the federal primary. That mail-out date is Friday the 11th. We've mailed out 47,000 plus ballots. So some people will get those Saturday, some people will get those on Monday.
Cosby says voters should call the elections office if you don't get your ballot by Tuesday. Because of some construction, one of Missoula's polling places is going to need to be relocated, though.
The Hellgate polling place is being moved from the elementary school. The school's under construction. They've asked us to relocate for this 2018 election cycle. So we are moving to the Missoula Technology and Development Center, and that is located at 5785 West Broadway Street, out past the fire sciences and all that stuff.
Ballots can be mailed back or dropped off at local polling places or at the fairgrounds. All ballots must be returned before 8 p.m. on Tuesday, June 5th.